Welcome to this week's episode of The Savvy Author. My name is Clara Rose. I'm the creator of the Be Savvy brand and your host today. If you've not been with us before, let me be the first to welcome you. Every week we talk about all of the pieces that it takes to be a savvy author. And I invite you to join us every week as we talk through these things, and you can learn some knowledge, maybe hop in the comments and say hello. We love having you. And then, of course, if you've been here before, welcome back, my friends. You make this show possible. This week, we're going to talk about something that we haven't talked about really in depth before, but I get questions about it. So let's dive in. First, we're going to talk about one piece of the three phases of book creation. Now, of course, if you're unfamiliar, the three different phases are the brainstorm and blueprint. Here's where we analyze so that we get the right book created for you. We brainstorm so we can capture all of those ideas that are either floating around in your head or in a notebook somewhere or on your computer or laptop perhaps, and then blueprint them, which is really just outlining the structure that your book is going to be built on. That's your foundation, phase one. Phase two is the creating and the refining stage. So here's where we actually put those words on paper, or actually, most people, it's a computer, right? You're not actually writing it on paper. There are a few old schoolers out there that actually do that, but getting it out of your head and onto paper, that's our writing. And then, of course, editing. Everyone needs an editor, right? We think we read what we think we wrote, not what we actually wrote. So everyone needs an editor. And then, of course, formatting, which is getting all of that ready to publish. So when you first get it written, it isn't pretty and isn't going to look like a book until we get it formatted. And that's phase two. And then the final phase is our publish and promote phase. This is where we understand all of our options for publishing and making a good choice for us. Then, of course, promoting or getting the word out that our book even exists, that it's coming. And then selling, an ongoing plan for the sale of your book. Doesn't do you any good to create a book if nobody knows it's there and nobody buys it from you. Today, we're going to focus on just one of those pieces, and that is the creating and the refining stage. And in fact, we're not even going to talk about this whole stage or this whole phase. We're just going to talk about a piece of it, writing and editing, a couple pieces of it. All right, so let's jump into the real topic of today, which is mastering the craft. Mastering the craft of what it is that you do. Crafting your message for the world is, of course, a process that is refined over time. And this applies to every form of written communication. Clear, concise, well-written messaging matters. It really matters. Now, whether you are a true writer or whether you just use writing in your daily communications for your job, your ministry, your cause, whatever it is that you do with your time, however you bring home a paycheck, it matters that you communicate effectively with people. Now, this really matters for those of us who are trying to get our message out for the world, crafting our message for the world in a way that everybody sees that our name's attached to it. It matters, of course, inside the business with people that you work with, coworkers, employees, but it really matters when you're crafting a message put out to the world for the world to see. And that's what we're going to really talk about today, mastering that craft. So first, let's ask ourselves this question. Do you consider yourself a writer or an author? Most people do have the basic ability to convey thoughts and ideas through the written word, but writers are compelled to write. So you could say, am I compelled to write? Well, here's a good example from my own life. I have always been compelled to write. In fact, when I was 11, I took a stack of notebook paper and wrapped it up with a string through the little holes, and I wrote my first book. I was compelled to write. It was a made-up story. I wish I had it to this day because I'm sure it would be good humor reading. But I was compelled even at that early age to capture my thoughts on paper. In high school, I was the person who did the journaling. I wrote a couple songs, wrote a bunch of poetry. I was compelled to write. Are you compelled to capture your words? If you are a writer, my friend. Whether you feel that you're a good writer or you're a poor writer, you are a writer if you're compelled to write. those of you who, yeah, it doesn't really matter if you write, you just as soon speak, or maybe you write because it's a part of your daily work, perhaps you're not a writer, and that's okay too. Okay, if you are a writer versus an author, that's okay. Some people never master the craft of writing beyond general communication with the people that they work with or the people that they serve, and that's quite all right. Writers are readers, so this alone will help sharpen the writing skills if you want to just write in your daily life and do it effectively. Reading is a great way to hone that skill. And you're thinking, Clara, how can that be true? But think about this. The average CEO reads a book a week. That's the average CEO, reads a book a week. The average person, other than the CEO, never reads another book beyond high school or college. Isn't that an interesting correlation between success level and how much you read? Think about it this way. When you read a book, it's being patterned for you how to write effectively. If you're reading good books, I guess I should preface that. So the more that you read, it makes sense, the more that you're going to understand how to write effectively and write correctly, okay? Those of us who work on the process are going to get better or master our craft over time. So then someone who's just a writer, who isn't necessarily compelled to write, they're still going to master their craft over time, but it's less important. If you're actually wanting to master your craft over time, it needs to be strategic and intentional. Now, I don't usually tell a lot of stories, but I have a couple of quick little stories for you that were instrumental in my own life over the years. It was probably the mid-90s, and that tells you how old I am. I was working at one of the few jobs that I ever worked for someone else. Most of the time I was self-employed, but I was working a job, and a lady that I worked with, I was working in a laboratory for swing shift. In the afternoon, I did phlebotomy, drawing blood. In the evening, we processed those specimens. Sometimes I helped out in pathology if the pathologist needed an assistant in the evening. And I was really efficient at getting those specimens processed in the evening. There was a stack to do. You had a limited amount of time to do it. I don't even wear a watch. And it needed to get done and processed before you could leave that day. And I got fast, right? I learned the shortcuts. I got quick at it. And the lady that I worked with part of the time actually went to a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever it was, because she had a hard time working with me because I just moved too fast. I was too efficient, and she was I think there because she was married to one of the doctors and she just wanted something to do. But her psychiatrist or whatever it was gave her the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And she came back to work and said, I have to read this book so that I can work with you. And I was devastated, heartbroken. I'm like, who doesn't love me, right? I'm so easy to get along with. I was crushed. But what it did is it made me stop for the first time in my adult life and look at me as a person and how I affected others around me. That was the beginning of personal and professional development for me. I started looking for how I interacted with the world and how it affected other people, and looked intentionally for ways to develop myself personally and professionally in the workplace. And it was pivotal in the trajectory of my life. It changed things for me when I started to think about my own personal development differently. And for a writer or somebody who aspires to be an author, thinking about their personal development should matter. So when you think about what you're putting out into the world, your own skill level makes a difference, doesn't it? So that was kind of a turning point for me, and it led to one of the most significant talks, I guess, that I've ever heard in my life. A gentleman was talking about, I can remember it was a motivational speech of some sort, I'm sure, because it was personal development, right? And he was talking about how his daughter was sad. His teenage daughter was really sad, and he had asked her, what's going on, honey? Why are you so upset? Why do you seem so down? And she said, no matter how hard I try, I'm stuck on varsity basketball. And no matter what I do, I can't seem to get past varsity, junior varsity. I really want to be on the varsity team. But I try really hard at practice every day, but I just am not good enough. I'm just not good enough. And he said, okay, well, here's what you need to do. If you want to make the varsity team, here's what you need to do. Every morning, I want you to get up at 4 o'clock, and we're going to go and we're going to shoot hoops. So you're going to free throw for an hour every morning. She's like, 4 o'clock, Dad, I don't know. He's like, how bad do you want it? She's like, okay, I'm going to do it. So she spent the entire summer getting up at 4 o'clock every morning to go shoot hoops for an hour with her dad so that she can make the team. So a new school year comes, she tries out, she makes varsity. And that's a silly story, maybe to some people, but to me it was like a light bulb went on that went, oh, huh. It's just skill level, right? The same thing is true in writing. The same thing is true in most anything that we do in life. It's about learning a skill set and practicing it. And the more you practice it, the better you become. And in time, you master your craft. It's true in any of the sports, karate, judo, football, basketball, any of those things, it's true. It's a skill level taken to the mastery. That's what it is. And writing is no different. As you practice, you master the craft. You hone the craft of writing, and you become a master at it. Okay, I only tell that because so many people come to me thinking and saying, I'm not really a great writer, but I have this story that I need to tell, or I have this message that I really need to get out to the world, and I've been trying for a long time. I just don't know how to make that happen. Can you help me? And we start by talking about their skill level. What's your skill level? And then we work on the skill level. And that's something that we're going to talk about in a minute today. Okay. Those who understand the value of authorship often pursue the craft of writing for that value. What do I mean by that? These are actually my ideal clients. Those are the people that realize, they understand that having a book of their own, being an author, brings value to what they do. It might be that, they have a business and they're trying to get more leads. A book is a great way to show off your expertise in that particular field and get more leads organically. Maybe you have a ministry, you have a cause, and you're looking to raise funds. Having your own book, authoring a book is a great way to do that. That's what I'm talking about when I say they understand the value of authorship. They've said, a book of my own is going to make a difference. It's valuable to me in what I'm doing. I need a book. Now, those are people who are aspiring authors who don't necessarily think of themselves as writers. Now, they may truly be those people who are compelled to write. They truly, at heart, might be writers, but they don't see themselves that way. So I encourage you, if that's you, think about whether you're compelled to write or not, and then if you are, know that writers write. And you, my friend, are a writer. Not all authors are truly writers, but writers that are truly writers really often are authors as well. There's a journey that you go on that you fall in love with during the mastery process. Okay, I don't want to run out of time before I get to all of the things I want to say today. So, working with a good editor, in my opinion, is one of the best ways for you to master your craft. Because as you work with that editor on the developmental editing process of your book, it will exponentially hone your craft. What do I mean by that? Getting past to start with those feelings of, yikes, I'm not really all that good at this. Yikes, this isn't something, I'm not a writer. It's like step one. We have to get you realizing you have a skill level and we're going to hone it as we go. Because you have a story for the world, you have a message that you want to craft for the world. Together, we hone that craft. We get you to a point of mastery. Hopefully, by the end of the book, you're feeling significantly better at what you do and even feeling like you've mastered your craft. When we first start a book together, or with any editor who does developmental editing, it's not just what I do, but any developmental editor, you're going to work through the process one chapter at a time. I like to wrap it the creation process and the editing process so tightly together that you can't help but hone your craft as you work through your book. So when you write chapter 1 and you send it to your editor to have a look at, in my case, they're sending it to me to have a look at, I'm editing that based on the outline that we created together. Remember how important that brainstorm and blueprint foundation is. I'm editing it based on that, but I'm developmentally editing, making it sound right, pulling the thoughts together cohesively, and helping you to not use words repeatedly that are unnecessary. That is like the word "that" is one of my biggest pet peeves. People use that a lot. Have a look at something you've written and see how many times you use the word "that." It's most often unnecessary. Occasionally, depending on usage, you need a "that." But for the most part, you can get rid of them. There are some other words that the same thing is true about. Repetitive phrases that we use. Now, we don't want to get rid of all of them, right? Because we want it to sound like you, a refined, intelligent version of you, correct? So we don't want to use words inappropriately, of course. And as your editor works through each chapter, your editor is going to show you, here's the changes that I recommend. So you're going to see all those crossed out that's. You're going to see sentence structure being changed so that the verbs and the adjectives and the adverbs and the nouns, sometimes, the prepositional phrases sometimes get moved to a different location in the sentence or paragraph so that it makes more sense to the reader. And then as you read the suggestions and go, oh yeah, that does sound better, guess what? You're learning. You are honing your craft. Now, when we get to chapter 2, and you've written chapter 2, some of the lessons that you learned from the edits of chapter 1 are going to affect how you write chapter 2. Now, consider that process scattered through 10, 12, 20 chapters. Do you see how somewhere along the line you're honing your craft, you're getting cleaner, your prose is getting tighter, it's a cleaner, tighter written script? So by the end of all of those chapters of editing, you've essentially had your editor train you or teach you through the process. And your editing is just getting cleaner as you go. Now, this is true. I actually discovered this years ago before I started writing books with my clients. I was just helping them develop content for their website or content for their brochures, or in the late 90s, I was helping people create content, for articles or anywhere where there was the written word and people were, as a business owner, feeling uncertain of how to word things. That's what I was helping them with. And even in that process, people were learning. So I could say, I need some thoughts about X. And then they would bring it to me or send it to me. I would edit it, send it back. The next time I asked them for something, it was cleaner. The copy was better, right? That they were mastering the craft of writing just a little bit, even though it was unintentional. So over the years, I've just built that into the process of how I work with my authors, helping them to master their craft. Fall in love with how great the words look, the prose looks, when it's done correctly, when it's clean, when it makes sense, when people start to go, wow, that was good. What you wrote, that was really good. Most people don't go, oh yeah, my editor totally taught me how to do that. But in truth, that's where they learned it. Someone helped them through that process. And I want to encourage you, if you're working on a book or you're getting ready to work on a book, find an editor that's going to edit with you in that way. So it's not just you finish the book, give it to me and I'll edit it, because there's less learning that happens for you in that process. Find somebody who offers developmental editing, much like I do, and will walk the process with you, especially if you're thinking, I'm definitely a writer at heart, and I definitely want to author more than one book. As time goes on, yes, you'll still need an editor for your authored work, but you will need them less and less. And I personally love it when my clients go on to another project. We do a second project together or a third project together. But guess what? my work is getting easier, right? Because I've already kind of groomed them a little bit. They're already getting a little bit better at their craft. They're already mastering their craft. They're actually becoming writers when they become a published author. So I just want to encourage you to think of yourself in those two ways. Am I a writer and not or an author, or am I a writer and am I an author? Ask yourself those questions. How you approach your writing really can be based on that. If you're just writing for work, still take the time to get good at communication, because it really does make a difference for the people that you work with, for your clients. It really does make a difference when you can effectively communicate. But if you're really going to be crafting your message for the world, which if you're watching the Savvy Author Show, it is likely that that is why you're here, to craft your message, hone your craft your message for the world. I encourage you to spend some time mastering your craft. Then, of course, I'd love to invite you, if you're needing some help, to participate in the Savvy Author program. I'm going to back up. I skipped a slide on you there. Do you need help mastering your craft? We love working with authors, especially first-time authors, as we help them to hone their skills and master their craft during the creation of their first authored work. Now, of course, if you've already got a book out there and you didn't get to go through the developmental editing process with somebody, we would still love to work with you. Some people come to us after several books, partly because our process is so different. And you've probably heard me, if you've been here before, you've heard me talk about the author who came in for book 5 and took her purse and dumped it on the floor. She's very dramatic about it, dumped it on the floor, and there were hundreds of little sticky notes and index cards and stuff that fell on the floor. And she's like, here's how I write my books. And it was just everywhere, all over the floor. And this was book 5 for her. So we taught her a different way. We taught her a better way. And we call it the brainstorm and blueprint. Let's do something with all of these sticky notes and note cards and stuff that's all over the floor. It was funny. We laughed. We took a picture of it. It was great for when she talked about her book to the people who buy her books. She came to us for that process, and so that was kind of funny. But really what we specialize in is helping people to master that. So whether it's your first book or your 5th book, we would love to work with you. Now, something that has happened recently, and I'm not sure why this is true, but people are more and more drawn to being parts of a community. So if that's you, you're looking to be a part of a community of authors, we have something special for you. So if you're looking for writing help, plus you want a writing community that you can be a part of, then the Savvy Author Mentoring Program just might be for you. You can grab a spot on our waiting list so you can get a notification when the doors open in the fall. And you can do that by going to clararose.com/waitlist. That's just clararose.com/waitlist. And you'll just get a notification. I promise I'm not going to spam you. We're not going to send you a bunch of junk. We're not going to sell your name to anybody, your name and email. This is just to get on the waiting list so that when the doors open in the fall, you won't miss out if you truly want to be a part of the community. We have to take small groups at a time, and so it often fills up really quickly even before we announce it to the general public. So if you truly want to be in the fall group, hop on the waiting list and we'll let you know that it's happening. If it's a good time for you, you can join. If not, we'll put you on the waiting list for the next time the doors open. Okay, so I'm almost out of time, but really quickly, if you are interested, I want to give you just a peek or a picture, a sneak peek at what is offered in the mentoring program. Our members get the brainstorm and blueprint process. We walk through it together. There are videos and PDFs and different things in there that you can look at, different learning tools you can use, but ultimately it's about us coming together and doing a brainstorm and blueprint together. So you get a good firm foundation on your book before you start the writing process. And then of course there's writing that takes place and accountability. There's nothing like joining your weekly call, your accountability call, and having to say, I didn't do my work this week, right? Or the more exciting is I wrote my chapter this week, or I wrote my 500 words, or whatever the commitment that you put out there. I did my work this week. I am working on my book. That accountability is key for most people. And then, of course, editing and formatting, helping you to learn how to do some of your own editing. The important pieces of formatting, we talk about all of those. There's additional help with that if you're needing it. And then publishing and launching, those are super important pieces. We have the Savvy Launch program we call Catapult, which will give you everything that you need to know to get your book successfully launched out into the world. And then we talk also about promoting and selling your book. You can't just throw it out there and expect that people will come. Sometimes if you have a large following, you throw it out there, some people will come. But most of the time, even with very successful books, it has been strategic and it has been intentional, and people have been talking about it for months before it even comes out. If you were here a few weeks ago and saw the launch of Teresa's book, that represented 6 months of pre-launch. When that book came out. Did we hit bestseller on Amazon? Yes, we did. And it was super exciting. Actually, she hit another bestseller and best new real estate book or something like in 2 days. Super exciting, but it didn't just happen. It was strategic. It was intentional. We did it together. So those are some of the things that you're going to learn. I don't have time to tell you everything that you're going to learn in the Savvy Author Mentoring Program, but just suffice it to say we have a proven process. So if you're ready to get your book done and working for you, the Savvy Author Mentoring Program was designed to help you make that happen, and you are going to want to jump on the waiting list today if that's true. So really quickly, once again, clararose.com/waitlist if you want to be on the wait list. Then, of course, we are always looking for great topics to cover. And if you have an idea for a topic we have not covered, shoot me an email at hello@clararose.com and let me know what that is. And maybe we'll be featuring you on one of the shows in the future. All right, I'm out of time. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining me.